Hello, my name is Ya Cao. Today I want to talk to you about everything wrong with Genesis 1 in the Bible. Really? On YouTube, there is a rather vocal atheist who calls himself Friendly Atheist. His real name is Hemant Mehta. I have made 2 videos debunking him already. I am sure I will make even more later. He's a die-hard atheist. Everyone has the freedom of belief. Yet, in his channel, he is determined to make a lot of videos slandering the Bible, starting from the book of Genesis. Today, I want to debunk his first such video, called Everything Wrong with Genesis 1 in the Bible. I'm going to show you, because of his prejudice, which leads to his ignorance, he can't see how marvelous the Bible is. Mr. Mehta complains about the Bible is not scientific, by pointing out something he has problems with. The Bible is the best-selling book in history. It has long been regarded as the Word of God and the revelation of God. It is a religious scripture, not a science book, especially in the creation account of the world. God does not explain why things happened, but only proclaims what had happened. Genesis was written by Moses about 3,400 years ago, not by his own imagination, but according to God's revelation. Even though the Bible is not a science book, as we will see, the Bible is very scientific. Mr. Mehta talked about the Big Bang as the cause of the universe. Besides reading the phrase, he neglected to mention the first sentence of the Bible starts with "in the beginning." We know that at Moses' time, there was no science whatsoever. In Eastern cultures such as Chinese and Indians, they view time as being circular, with no beginning nor end. Therefore, they have the zodiac cycle of 60 years and the reincarnation concept. As you see the icons for those concepts, you can see circulation in them. And yet, in the Bible, the first phrase is "in the beginning." This is an extraordinary concept when you think of it. Today we know from science that the universe was from the Big Bang. And after the Big Bang, time began. The Bible tells us as it is what we understand about time today more than 30 centuries ago, that all the modern scientific knowledge has been painstakingly discovered and learned over the last century. And Mr. Mehta boasts about his scientific knowledge, yet he doesn't even realize the significance of the phrase "in the beginning." The Bible said, "Let there be light," meaning the first thing created was light. Mr. Mehta immediately objects that the sun was created on the 4th day. How could the light be? Mr. Mehta only looks at things from the surface. However, the view actually exposes his ignorance. Mr. Mehta seriously questions that before the sun was created, where the evening and the morning came from. In verse 2 of chapter 1, "And there was evening and there was morning, the first day." Moses wrote Genesis way after the sun was created. He used something every Jew would know. According to Jewish thinking, a day starts at sundown. Therefore, the way of saying "and there was evening and there was morning" is nothing but Moses' way to tell us it was a 24-hour day. Mr. Mehta doesn't know the background. That only shows his ignorance by saying it had no meaning without the sun. Mr. Mehta also has a problem with verse 6 and 7 about water above water. If you read Genesis as a whole, not like him criticizing out of context, you will find it is very profound. When God created earth, it was God's grace. He used a level of water as a shield to block out the harmful radiation, as well as making the earth a greenhouse. Just like today, we have the ozone layer, but the water was even more effective than the ozone. As a result, if you read chapter 2, the earth was very pleasant with the right temperature and humidity. So both Adam and Eve needed no clothes, naked. When you read Genesis, before the Great Flood, everyone had longevity because not much harmful radiation was present. The human DNA was very healthy. Even close relatives could marry and have children without genetic defects like we would have today. The water above the sky was the source of the Great Flood later, and after the upper water was depleted, the life expectancy had dropped sharply down to 120 years, even till today, because there is no longer that protection anymore, causing the human DNA to deteriorate. The water above the sky also explains why our Earth is the only planet that 71% of the surface is water. Mr. Mehta reads the Bible just to criticize it out of context. Have you ever seen him quoting Bible verses from other parts of the Bible as I do here? Never. Poor Mr. Mehta, how could he know any of these? Now the light was created before the sun was created. For most people, indeed, it is a problem, even a contradiction. Anyone would know that in Moses' time, everyone's notion of light was from the sun. Moses was an adopted son of the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. He was a smart person according to the Bible in Acts 7:22. Moses was educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was powerful in speech and action. It would not be possible for him not to know that there was a problem, and yet he wrote that in the Bible. The only explanation is God told him to write it that way. If that was the case, it indicated that God must exist. The problem is that would God make such a mistake? Before the 20th century, all doubters would think light before the sun was created must be a mistake. However, in the past century, we have learned a great deal about how the universe came about. Let me explain that to you. There was an ardent atheist, the late Stephen Hawking, the renowned physicist, cosmologist. In 2011, he made a movie that was published by the Discovery Channel, and some Chinese translated it by adding the Chinese subtitles and posted it on YouTube, called Absolutely Curious, Did God Make the Universe? After I watched it, I made a video at the end of 2012 to debunk him. You can find it on my channel. Unfortunately, the video was done in Mandarin Chinese. After a couple of years, the original movie on YouTube was removed for copyright infringement. In preparation for this video, I tried very hard to find the original movie, yet nowhere to be found. I can only assume that Hawking later realized the problem of his movie, so he simply eliminated. Hawking had done similar things like that. For instance, his wife, who was a Christian, whom he later divorced, once told him that his PhD dissertation actually proved that God must exist. So after that, he overthrew even his own dissertation. This is well documented in the Oscar-winning movie of his biography called The Theory of Everything in 2015. What I'm about to say is from the original YouTube movie, and I have the original screenshots to prove that. Hawking said, although he was disabled, had to sit in a wheelchair and use a speech synthesizer to speak, his mind was free to think. He had thought about how the universe came about. He had figured it out like a cookbook that made the universe. In order to have the universe, it had to have some important ingredients. First, we need matter, a massive amount of matter. We can see from many planets which consist of massive amount of matter. Second, energy, lots of them. For example, the sun of our solar system emits a huge amount of heat and light. Third, space, vast space. The universe is so vast that is totally beyond our comprehension. However, before Hawking, the even greater scientist Albert Einstein gave us the theory of relativity, proves that matter and energy can be converted from one form to the other. They are nothing but the same substance looking from two different angles. Therefore, the ingredients needed to cook up the universe are energy and space. There you have it. The first thing you need is energy to create the universe. At Moses' time, there was no such concept or the terminology of energy. Today, without scientific knowledge, we know that there are many different kinds of lights. As you can see from one book titled that they form a spectrum. The lights form a light spectrum. In that spectrum, we have visible lights and non-visible lights. We have ultraviolet lights and infrared lights. We have the X-ray, gamma ray, and laser lights, and many, many more. As you can see from another picture, the majority of them are not visible from the sun. Please carefully look at the picture, saying as the wavelengths get smaller, the energy increase. In other words, light is another way of noting energy, and God used that to denote what we know today as the energy to create the universe. Doesn't that make perfect sense? Can you see how marvelous the Bible is? The Bible proves itself, even though people have doubts about that for centuries. Poor Mr. Mehta, his scientific concept is so limited and behind to believe all lights are from the sun. And his mind still backward, staying in the 19th century. Isn't that laughable? I can show more examples of Mr. Mehta's ignorance. If I do, the video will be very long because he is indeed very ignorant. With all these things he said, he missed a very important one. He said, according to science, the universe is 16 billion years old. And yet the Bible said that God created it in 6 days. That should be an even bigger contradiction, and yet he failed to even mention it, which shows he doesn't know what is important. We clearly have another problem about whether the universe was created in 6 24-hour days. How do we resolve this huge difference? Again, Albert Einstein's theory of relativity provides us some clues. In Einstein's relativity theory, there are relative times. When two objects flying, depending on the velocities of the objects, the time experienced by each object are different and are relative. The formula you are looking at can be found on the internet, which is used to calculate the relative times. Delta t on the top is the time experienced by the flying object with the velocity v. The time of the observing object will be different, which is on the left, delta t prime. If an object flying at the speed of the light, its time will stand still. If the speeds of two objects flying are relatively close, their relative time are unnoticeable. As you can see in the picture, when the Big Bang started, the universe expands quickly at the speed that was almost to the speed of light. In other words, God traveled at close to the speed of light to create the universe, and yet we are almost stationed, not moving on the earth. Therefore, we apply the velocity close to the speed of light in the formula. The fraction in the square root is smaller but almost 1. Then the denominator on the right will be very, very small, close to 0. Therefore, the time we experience on the left for God's 6 days divided by a very small number could be 16 billion years or even longer, according to Einstein's relativity theory. That very well collaborates with another Bible verse in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 8. But do not forget this one thing, dear friends. With the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. As I said before, God declared He spent 6 days creating the universe in Genesis 1. And yet for us, we experience as long as science has told us. Everything is according to the science, and there is no contradiction. Can you see how marvelous the Bible is and how scientific the Bible is? I feel very sorry for Mr. Mehta. If you watch his videos, you can see he's an arrogant, prideful person. He didn't understand the Bible, but he dared to criticize the best-selling book in the history. In addition, his scientific knowledge is superficial, but blames the Bible for being unscientific. I'm not even sure he understands what I talk about in the relativity theory. There is a Chinese proverb, have a bottle of water, jingle. What that means is if you have a water bottle filled with water, when you shake it, it won't make any sound. But if a water bottle is only half full, it will make a lot of noise. The Chinese proverb points out the fact that if someone doesn't have much substance inside of him, yet he makes a lot of noise. That fits Mr. Mehta perfectly. I hope Mr. Mehta's fans wise up. Please do not let him brainwash you. I will make a prediction now that his Bible criticizing videos won't last very long. People will get bored with them sooner or later. In my channel, I have a playlist showing the existence of God. That is understandable because God has given us ample evidence. Those are 1. Atheism is unrealistic. It shows that atheists don't have a thread of evidence about God does not exist. 2nd, the death knell of evolution. Some people don't believe in God because they believe in evolution. I use the most basic biology and the probability to show evolution is totally wrong. 3rd one, use your brain to know God exists. The proper approach of knowing God exists is not by seeing or hearing, it is by using cause and effect. 4th, the death knell of atheism. It is a logical conclusion that God must exist. The 5th one, the scientific evidence of the existence of God. Finally, I provide some scientific evidence to show God must exist. If you watch them, you will know the existence of God is understandable and the atheism is wrong. Also, another playlist about the Bible. The first one, why is Bible the Bible? Why do people believe the Bible is the revelation of God? 2nd, some amazing example in the Bible. From those examples, you will know God not only exists, but also amazingly so. 3rd, what is the source of wisdom? We will examine history to see the Bible really gives us wisdom. If you watch them, you will know how remarkable the Bible is and why the Bible is the best-selling book in history. Last but not least, why are people sinners? Fundamental problem for all of us. 2nd, what is the consequence of sinners? This is very important to know. 3rd, what is the gospel? This playlist explains how can we escape hell. All the links are provided below in the description area. In my channel, there are also other videos you might find interesting. If you have any question, comments, even criticism, please feel free to contact me. My email address is belcantog@gmail.com. Thank you for watching, and may God richly bless you.